If your daily journaling is just a list of what you want or a checklist of your daily task, you're literally training your brainstem to optimize struggle and survival. We are combining Mike Hernacki's ultimate secret of unshakable intent in Dr. Matt James' Somatic Ho'oponopono clearing. If you don't use physical somatic tools to update your success map, your body just can reject your growth. Episode 128, I introduced the exact subconscious operating system we use to program leaders for high-velocity execution. Stream it now and book your subconscious audit at bespokehumanpotentialcoaching.com. Eat legit. For years, I've been quietly perfecting the process that allows me to operate at a high level scale of lightness and velocity. In that time, I've compounded the business, optimized my physical vessel, and kept my internal state entirely unburdened by typical chaos of multi-million-dollar executive grind. If you're like most high achievers, you'll probably assume that my daily routine was filled with complex software dashboards and massive tactical calendars and endless spreadsheets. Today, I'm opening the hood of my daily routine to confess something. I don't use traditional planners. I don't track my life using standard task lists. Instead, I rely on the single physical tool every morning and every night to keep my internal thermostat locked in to the immeasurably more. It is a proprietary daily operational framework that I've kind of kept really close to my chest. You know, I recently kind of quietly been introducing it to my private and elite clients. I call it the Transformation and Execution Journal. And before we dive into the mechanics, I need to strip away any assumptions you are currently making. It's not a notebook. It's not. This is not your standard planner to schedule your meetings. It is absolutely not a passive, fluffy gratitude journal. Not that it's not important, but that's not what this is. The Transformation and Execution Journal is actually a biological and subconscious operating system. It is really the missing link that forces somatic clearing and strategic business execution to run in the exact same 24-hour cycle. You know, because up to this point, you may have been taught that to split your life into two different areas, right? You have a strategic and goal-setting planner, and then you do your mindset work or meditation on a pillow. That division is why you might be hitting a performance plateau. If your daily strategic actions are running on top of unsanitized unconscious baseline, you're simply using willpower. And we've been talking about willpower for a moment. You're actually using this willpower to force a broken engine to run. Today, we're going to completely shatter the paradigm of how objectives are materialized. Welcome to the Legit Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Curtis McCullom. Let's do some surgery. Before we open the physical pages of this system, I want you to understand the unshakable law that governs this entire practice. I created or coined what I call the universal capacity principle. And it really is taken from a scripture. I love that scripture is Ephesians 3:20. But in essence, what it tells me and it tells you is that this universal capacity principle is always active. You will always receive. This is scary and it's good all at the same time. You will always receive immeasurably more of whatever you ardently desire or habitually imagine. Your mind and your business is already operating under this principle right now. It doesn't matter where you are. It's already operating under this principle. And if you are habitually imagining worst case scenarios, operational bottlenecks, or partner betrayals, you will receive immeasurably more of them. That's why sometimes we think that when we're focusing on certain things and all of a sudden they start to show up more and more and more. This is this principle in practice. See, the universe does not filter based on what is good for you. Let me say that again. The universe, or God, or whatever you believe in, and this how this system works, it does not filter based on what is good for you. It filters based on your active, dynamic capacity. And this is the core of everything that we do. My work is to help you to empty your backpack, your baggage of the past, so that when you ask for the future, you have an empty space that is sharpened and focused to receive a reality that is on purpose and for purpose and immeasurably beyond your wildest imaginations. The journal that I'm handing to you today is the practical daily engine that executes this exact work. It is how we systematically empty the container of yesterday's stress so that we have the pristine, unburdened focus to hold the high voltage expansion of tomorrow. To understand why we must step away from traditional goal setting, we have to look at how the brain actually processes written information. Now, like most people use journals or planners to track what they want. And they may write, I want to scale my agency to $30,000, $100,000 a month, whatever that number is. Or I want to find a deeply aligned relationship. When you write down what you want, your subconscious mind, which is highly literal, registers the linguistic command of lack. It translates want as, I don't currently possess this. And your reticular activating system, we talked about this a few weeks ago, your reticular activating system, or the RAS, then goes to work to match your external reality to your internal state of deficit. So what happens is this, you're keeping that permanent stuck cycle of chasing and straining and grinding to get there. This is the thing about it. You probably have already hit a lot of goals. I imagine you have. So the difference is that, but did you hit them, and how much was drained from you? How much were you chasing, and how much were you straining and grinding to get there? Traditional goal setting actually hardwires the biology loop of struggle. See, in cognitive psychology, a pioneering researcher, Hazel Marcus, she formulated the self-schema theory. And her work proves that the human brain constructs cognitive generalizations about the self based on past experiences. These self-schemas, kind of what they do, guys, they dictate what information we process and how we behave. If your self-schema is subconsciously programmed as a founder who must fight to survive, your brain will actively delete or ignore opportunities that allow for effortless scale because those opportunities don't align with that survival focused identity. Our journal is designed to break this cognitive loop. We do not focus on doing to have. We focus on being to execute. We divide the daily process into two strict parts for this operational loop, right? First, we have the morning causal anchor. Then we have the evening integration loop. And it looks like this. Let's look at the science behind both of these first. Every morning, before your brain is actually hijacked by emails, Slack, notifications, and reactionary fires, you open your journal to establish your internal cause of the day. And this is the learn grow phase of the program. This is your identification proclamation. You start by writing an identification proclamation. You don't list your tactical steps. You don't have to state anything. This is what you state. You state in present tense exactly who you are today to match your highest target. To give you an example of this, if your target was 100,000 of revenue a month or 200,000 or 30,000 of monthly revenue, that's the baseline. You proclaim, I am a person who consistently generates $30,000 plus in revenue by sharing my gift of transformation facilitation. So I say, I'm a person who consistently generates 100,000 or 30,000 in revenue by sharing my gift of transformation facilitation. What you're doing here, you are forcing your brain to update the self-schema before the day even begins. But by declaring who you are is only the structural foundation. That's the first part. Before you physically lock this new identity in your biology, you have to inject some raw, high voltage emotional pressure into that declaration. And so you must establish this absolute necessity for this target. This is what I found over the years is that a lot of people have goals, right? They have them, but they're not so emotionally charged that they truly want it. So you have to directly, below the identity proclamation, you write your intensity affirmation. A core alignment practice that I kind of adopted this from chapter 9 of Mike Hernacki's book, Groundbreaking Work. With total focus, you put pen to paper and write these exact words, or this is a demonstration of the words that I normally write. This is what I write. I write, I love and must have this reality. I changed mine to I am open to immeasurably more and willing to do whatever it takes to get my desired objective. Then I follow it up with says, my manifestation unfolds with ease, alignment, and precision. Why this specific formalization is so devastatingly effective? This is why. Because your subconscious mind is entirely unimpressed by weak, passive wishes or half-hearted hopes. Let me say it again. Your subconscious is entirely unimpressed by a weak, passive wish. And that's what a lot of people do. They says, well, it didn't happen, or I didn't get my goal. I didn't manifest what was in my life. Was it weak? Was it unimpressive? Was it passive? Was it half-hearted? See, your subconscious only submits to absolute single-pointed intent. By stating, I love and must have this reality. What are you doing? Are you programming your neurobiology to treat your objective not as a nice to have luxury, but as a biological necessity for your survival? And declaring that you are willing to do whatever it takes, simultaneously commanding that it unfolds with ease, you execute a mindful cognitive override. You kind of bypass the brainstem's primitive expectations that massive growth must equal massive suffering, or you're allowing your system to accelerate without triggering this homeostatic panic brake, right? So I want to talk a little bit about this, willing to do whatever it takes. I'm really focusing on that part. When I read that in Mike's book, I'm like, oh my God, willing to do whatever it takes. I kind of left it out for a minute. Then I started to think about it. And what he was saying was that I'm willing to do it. So my subconscious mind is like open to other opportunities. When a person comes to work with me, they have to be willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. And part of that is willing to let go of their old identity that no longer serves them. So when you're willing to do it, and some things you might be willing to do, that doesn't mean you necessarily have to do it, but you got to be willing to do it. And I'm not talking about something illegal or anything like that. I'm talking about things where actually move your business forward, then you're willing to do it. Because some things we might say, you know what, I'll do this, but I won't do that. No, your subconscious mind says, no, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get what I want. And that's kind of what accelerates that. Now, once you have set this cause, you set it, now let's install it. This is what we call the anchor process. You've written it out. And what I do, guys, I want you to write it. I'm just going to reach over real quick. I use my journal. I journal through a book. It's called Books. It's an electronic journal. And so I write everything down every morning. I have a worksheet that goes along with it. It's already programmed in there, and I write it out. It's so important to write it because when you're physically writing something, you're now also programming it into the subconscious mind as another layer of programming. So once it's written, you must kind of biologically now install this code into your physical hardware. You do this by using what they call a causal anchor, which is a highly targeted somatic override. And this is the physical anchor. What you do first is, like I'm now, I'm sitting at my desk. If I was sitting at my desk right now, sitting at your desk, place your elbows. I can't place mine because it's too low, but have your elbows down like so. Then you want to cover your face, right? You want to place your little fingers gently on your eyelids and your fingers across your forehead and your thumbs pressed firmly against your temple. It'll look something like this. My pinkies is on my eyelids. My fingers are on my forehead and my thumbs are on my temples. Why? This is important. And I'll tell you why in a second. But that's the way it looks, something like this. I want to show you that. Okay, now the visualization, while you're pressing gently on your eyelids Kind of you blocking out all of the light and you pressing this on your forehead. Now I want you to visualize in that dark space between your eyes, you're entering into this state of total immersion, right? Now you're going into a total immersion. You are fully associating yourself with the vision. You're not just watching it. This is important. This is real important. You want to have a visual effect. You want to feel it in your body. You want to hear the sights, the sounds, the visual feeling of the success signal at maximum. I mean, it's like, wow, you can feel it in your body. When I'm feeling it in my body in the mornings, when I'm doing this, I literally feel it and I kind of shake and shiver a little bit because it's in my body and I'm focusing my attention on this. So you're feeling it. You're really into it. You're totally seeing this coming into you. For me, I see clients flowing to me from different sources. I see referrals being referred to me. I see people engaging with me on my social media account. I see me now at retreats and at seminars and workshops. People are like really understanding what I teach and what I love to do. And it's coming from a lot of different sources. I see it and sense and feel that. Then what you want to do, you want to release it. Once the visual is fully chemically charging your body, you can just feel it like this visual effect. You exhale and release the energy into the ether. What I do like this, I just drop it into the ether like this. That's what I do. That's how I do it. And I can see it just like falling into the ether because now it's realigning itself to and help me to reach my goal and objectives. So I'm exhaling it. The energy, the image is into the ether. We're signing the page to seal the transaction. Now, in most of my journals, at the end on the page, I have a place for my signature. I'm signing it. I'm signing it like, hey, I approve of this. Then this kind of establishing this unshakable point of intent and releasing it, kind of like I said, direct to the universe. Now, this was taken directly from Mike Hernacki's book, the groundbreaking work, The Ultimate Secret to Getting Absolutely Everything You Want. And it's funny about that book is that it's been in my library and it looked like I had read it before. I don't remember. But like I told you before, I've been working through this manifestation program. I had one just about completed. And then when I read this book, I kind of updated mine to kind of incorporate some of these other methods in here to make sure it was incorporated. So in Hernacki, he proved that the absolute non-negotiable intent of ultimate catalyst for materializing objectives, we take his psychological secret. What you're actually doing is you're anchoring this via the Oculocardiac Reflex or Ashner's reflex. So when you apply light pressure to the extraocular muscles, you stimulate the sensory fibers of the transgeneral nerve that's sending a direct signal to your brainstem. What it does, it rapidly kind of activates the vagus nerve. And it's causing an immediate involuntary regulation of the heart rate and your systematic blood pressure. So what it does, it instantly shifts your nervous system out of a high beta fight or flight state, and you kind of drops your brain waves down to alpha-beta boundary. So this is why it's important. This is where your subconscious mind is highly suggestible. That's why it's so important too when you're doing goals or settings late at night, right before you go to bed. It's always a great time. Early in the morning, when you first wake up, it's a good time. Why? Because your brain is open. It's highly suggestible. And that's kind of what he talks about, how this actually hardwires operational code. So by doing this, you're not wishing for success. You're actually training your brainstem and your autonomic system to normalize the target before you ever check the box. See, alternatively, if you prefer, I do this before I did this particular system, and you still want this somatic engagement. Visualization is most important. You want to see and feel it in your body, and then you can anchor it in. You can anchor it in by pressing your index finger and thumb together or something, pressing some type of physical gesture together. What it does is conditions that trigger. You link in that heightened physiological state to your success visualization to a specific motor movement. And I do that a lot. I think I told you before, many years ago, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar. I still have that anchor in my hand, being able to walk across those hot coals. So every time I do this, every time I go in for a presentation or something, I might fire that anchor off to get me back into that intense state. So over time, what it does, it still creates this somatic anchor that allows you to instantly get regulated in that alpha-theta boundary. So effectively, you're still hardwiring your operational code without actually needing the ocular pressure. But let's be totally honest, right? When you write down a goal you write down an objective or a goal that's really huge, right? The moment you write it down in that high frequency identity proclamation, your ego is going to kick back. you're going to feel it. You might have like, I call it, do you have something somatic? Like, oh my God, I feel scared. My chest tightens up. If you write down, I generate $30,000, $100,000 a month, and your body immediately responds with the tight knot, or your gut, or an invasive thought start to whispering like, you can't sustain that, or who you think you are. You've heard that before. What traditionally, when most of the time in traditional manifestation advocates, what they tell you is just ignore those feelings, push them down, chant more with more affirmations. But no, suppressing an emotional charge is a biological catastrophe. The pioneer trauma psychiatrist, Dr. Basil von Kork, and the author of The Body Keeps Score, proved that an emotional block, past professional failures, and limiting safety scripts are not just intellectual thoughts. They're somatic. They're biological patterns stored in our physical tissues and an autonomic nervous system. So if you do not somatize in clearing of that residual, your cognitive plans for scaling will always be sabotaged by your body's defense system. So you have to clear it. And this is why in the journal of a built-in clearing and integration section, the moment a counter intention or a biological break arises, which it will sometimes, most of the time, we execute a somatic release process to return the body to a state of what I call pono. It's a Hawaiian state of absolute balance and righteousness. Because it could be, a feeling of doubt. It could be a feeling of fear. It could be a feeling of, oh my God, who am I? Whatever that is. Well, Dr. Matt James, he actually clinically demonstrated that Ho'oponopono is not merely a mental concept of reconciliation. It's actually a somatic experimental clearing tool. It works directly with the unconscious mind to dissolve the aka, or the energetic cords that kind of binds the past negative emotions and physical blockages and limited beliefs. So the first thing you do is first you locate where this fear or what is feeling is actually in your body. And next, what you do, you project this unconditional love. I can see, sense, and feel myself surrounded by this light of love, unconditional, and that this presence directly around my heart center and the physical sensation. So it kind of softens the grip a little bit. Unless you speak directly to it, I forgive you, please forgive me. I sometimes says, I love you and thank you. Thank you for what you've given me. Thank you for what you have experienced. Thank you for bringing this to my attention so I can release it. Then I visualize it, the core, the physical, energetic connection of that old pattern, of that struggle, is kind of severing and kind of disappearing. And I'm kind of handing it over to my higher source. So by utilizing Dr. James's clinical model of somatic forgiveness and cord release, you are actually performing real-time biological surgery of your limitations, ensuring that your body is safe to hold the speed of your scale. And the final piece of the journaling operation occurs right before you go to sleep. The evening is the integration. So most visionaries at the end of the day, by checking the Slack or strolling through the social media or worrying about tomorrow's operational fires, by doing this, you're actually programming your sleep state processes to consolidate stress. See, in sleep medicine and cognitive neuroscience, researchers study that sleep state memory consolidation. It's called sleep state memory consolidation. So during your REM sleep, your brain's glymphatic system cleanses while the hippocampus actively replays and organizes and consolidates the dominant emotional and sensory data for your final awakening hours. So what your brain is doing is kind of flushing out all of that junk physically, but the brain physically restructures the synaptic connections based on whatever thoughts or somatic states you are actively right before you sleep. So if you're going to sleep with junk, it's kind of reprogramming it back into your system. What you need to do is, if you go to sleep stressed, your brain spends 8 hours consolidating and melating the neural pathways of anxiety and struggle. What we do with our journal overrides that by demanding you to record evidence of alignment and evidence, what I call faith builders, before sleep. A faith builder is something that happened during the day that was not the goal, was accomplished, but something that moved you close to it and you felt it, that moved you. That was a faith builder. You needed something just to keep moving forward. So you actively search out the day for your wins and your synchronicities and proof of your new identity. By doing this, what you're doing, you're forcing your brain to select attention, to prioritize the ease. You instruct your sleep state processor to build a permanent neural infrastructure for abundance while rest. While you wake up the next morning, you pre-wired for high velocity and scale. The transformation and executing journal is the daily operating system that it actually bridges the gap between somatic alignment and absolute business execution. It's how we stop chasing our legacy and start really allowing our hardware to conduct it cleanly. If you're a multi-7-figure or 8-figure leader who recognizes that you are currently trying to run an advanced strategic plan on stress and unsanitized internal baseline, let's get together. Go to bespokehumanpotentialcoaching.com right now and book your private 15-minute subconscious audit. We bypass all the talk therapy rabbit holes and diagnose exactly the homeostatic set points holding your capacity hostage and hand you the exact identity blueprint you need to lead with absolute lightness. If you're ready to stop operating your business on stress and unsanitized subconscious baseline, I want to hear from you today. Stroll down right now and drop a comment below the episode. Tell me what is the want you have been chasing and that you are ready to transform into an identity proclamation today. What is that old baggage that you're ready to empty your system to make room for true capacity? Let's start the conversation in the comments. And if this episode gave you a complete new lens on how to materialize your objectives, don't keep this room to yourself. Share the track with one high-performing leader in your network who is currently grinding themselves to dust because they are trying to drive an advanced strategy on low-grade internal operating system. Let's help them drop the brake and lead with lightness. This is the Legit Mindset Podcast. I'm Curtis McCullom. Be legit.